I've been a patient of yours for about a year and a half, and I've had a lot of health problems in my life, but I was adopted at birth and didn't meet my birth family until I was an adult with my own children, so I never knew anything about my medical history. But I've had lots of different things growing up. I had lots of skin rashes that the doctors didn't know what they were, and I had extreme anxiety my whole life. And my favorite foods were bread and milk. And then at age 27, I got really lethargic, sleepy all the time. It was hard to take care of my kids. And then I found out through my birth mother that she had thyroid disease when she was younger. They had tested me for all kinds of things, cancer and everything. But because of that, I was tested for thyroid disease and found out that I had Hashimoto's disease. And I started taking Levoxyl, and things seemed to be going along okay in my life for several years, except I did have food intolerances sometimes. I still had my anxiety. But then about age 42, I began to have really serious food intolerances. And the first thing that happened was I couldn't tolerate alcohol anymore. And then I couldn't go out to eat because I'd be sick for 3 days afterwards. Like, have horrible headaches and GI problems and dizziness, and eventually I developed this constant, unusual burning smell in my nose that rarely went away. When I was 44, I developed this sleep disorder that I started really severely clenching my teeth at night, and I couldn't wake up from sleep. It was like what I call like being in a coma, and I couldn't remember my dreams anymore. I had to take naps all the time, and so then I had to change my work schedule. I started working for myself so that I could come home during the day and take a nap and then go back and do another shift. And also, another thing that happened was the left side of my body was atrophying, and I had extreme muscle weakness on that side. I had constant sprains, I had balance problems. It was like the power had been turned off on that side of my body, and my left eye, I couldn't really see clearly anymore, and I had a lot of aching in my eye. I could hardly drive anymore. My daughters had to drive me everywhere. I could hardly read, which was my favorite thing to do. So that went on for a long time, and you can imagine how many doctors I saw in this 10 years' time. Most told me they couldn't find anything wrong with me, or they would give me prescriptions for my severe reflux, which only made things worse. And I had 2 overnight sleep studies, and the only thing they could find was that I had restless legs, but they had no reasoning to give me for why I had that. And then finally, 9 years of my eye hurting, a doctor tightened the lid up, and that helped a lot, but then within a year it started to droop again. And thank goodness for the internet, because that's how I found out about the connection between Hashimoto's and gluten. I gave up wheat, and I did that for 6 months, but nothing was really changing. And then that's when I came upon your website for the first time, and I read on there your ideas about going completely grain-free, and as soon as I read that, it was like a light bulb went off in my head, and I knew that was the key for me. So at the same time, I decided to give up dairy because I knew that made me tired. I gave up soy and I gave up peanuts. And within a month, I had lost 6 pounds, which is really all I had to lose, but it was all in my stomach. I guess there was maybe inflammation in there or something that disappeared pretty quickly. However, a big change I noticed after 6 months was that my lifetime anxiety disappeared, which is a miracle for me. Something I had tried to talk myself out of, read books about, but when I took out things I was obviously allergic to or sensitive to, it went away by itself. And it was around this time that I found out my birth grandfather had celiac disease and had died at age 56. So I continued these dietary changes for about a year, and I still wanted to feel even better than I was feeling, even though I was feeling a lot better. So I called your office and I asked if you ever took phone patients, and they did, which was great because I live in California, you're in Texas. You gave me a lot of advice, and you told me what tests I should be taking and to find out what I was sensitive to or what I was lacking, and what supplements I should be taking. So I followed all your recommendations, and pretty soon I was feeling better than I had in 10 years. Just terrific. I still had my left side weakness and I had my sleep problem, but other than that, I was feeling great. Then, boom, after about 2 months of that, I began to have a really unusual heartbeat, like it was pounding out of my chest. And I had 3 different heart tests. They couldn't find anything wrong with my heart. So I also at this time began to have a lot more food sensitivities to eggs, meat, lots of fruits and vegetables. There was almost nothing I could eat. It was down to maybe at the most 6 or 7 foods that I could eat without having reactions. And I imagine I'm also sensitive to those. It's just that I have to eat something, so I keep eating them. And so I was hungry almost all the time, and that made my sleep disorder worse at night. And I became pale. I had dark circles under my eyes. And I also became really sensitive to artificial smells and chemicals. I could go into a store like Target and I'd be sick for 2 days after that. My senses of smell and taste were so damaged that I could eat a strawberry and it would taste like mustard. So, and over the course of this year, I was also diagnosed with 3 more autoimmune diseases, which were all skin diseases. So you can imagine how frustrating this was, because I had gotten so healthy for 2 months and I changed my life by changing my diet, doing my supplements, purifying my air, purifying my water, following all these recommendations, and I was still, something was really wrong. So you were really encouraging during this time, and I followed all your recommendations. However, I didn't really remember your guidance at the very beginning on heavy metal toxicity, because I was so concentrated on changing my diet. But at age 54, a few months ago, a link on the internet led me to read that mercury can cause food intolerances. I realized that the next thing I had to do was get my mercury amalgams out of my mouth. And I had a really deep one in the upper left molar, and then I had a small one right underneath that. And ironically, that's the side I clenched on every night really hard. So I've also had amalgams since I was a child. I've had fillings since I was little. So I found a holistic dentist in my hometown, and he took out the fillings and he followed all the safety procedures for mercury removal. And when I left his office, the brain fog and the bleariness around my eyes disappeared. They weren't there, they haven't come back, and it's been a month. Another thing that happened was that when I woke up the next morning, I had this sense of well-being, and I haven't had that for so long. And it wasn't just an intellectual knowing, oh, I've had my mercury out, now I'm happy. It was a feeling like when my anxiety went away, it's something that I didn't have control over. I felt like my brain felt different. So then, to my really great surprise, within 2 weeks, my left side lost its weakness. I can feel the strength coming back into that side, and it's not difficult to raise my arm or leg on that side anymore. And so I've since read on the internet that mercury toxicity can cause muscle weakness, and it can cause eyelid ptosis or droop. And then also within about 2 weeks, my sleep improved tremendously. I'm not clenching very much anymore, and when I wake up naturally. I don't struggle to wake up, and I'm remembering my dreams again after all these years. My clenching has lessened, and I was also getting neuropathy, tingling in my hands and my feet, and that has disappeared. At first, when they took my mercury out, it intensified, and that worried me, and now it's disappeared. So these were things I really thought weren't fixable, and so to me this is a miracle. So I imagine my food and chemical sensitivities will disappear more slowly, and of course, you know, we're doing a detox. You sent me supplements, and then I'm doing a sauna several times a week too. And my dentist is going to repair the damage to my teeth for the clenching for 10 years. And I'm looking forward to the day when I completely have my life back. So I just wanted to say to everybody else that if you're wanting the same thing as me, to have a healthy, productive life, so don't give up, because Dr. Osborne, you will never give up on your patients, and I really owe my health to you. And I just want to say to who's ever watching this, good luck, because you have to believe in the ability to get better, because Dr. Osborne believes in you. Well, Dr. Osborne helped me tremendously because he has a plan of doing individualized testing. It's not a one-size-fits-all type of thing. He looks at several things. He looked at the state of my gut, making sure there wasn't bacteria in there, yeast, other things that could be going on in there, and he did an individualized testing to see what supplements, minerals, vitamins, or different things I could be low in. And also he can do genetic testing for you, and he also looks at everything, and not just the diet. He also looks at the air you're breathing in your house, the water that you're drinking, the kind of chemicals that might be found in your household products, beauty products. And also, one thing that I really overlooked was the heavy metal part of the equation. And so he's looking at the big picture, not just dealing with one symptom. I was looking for a doctor that would look at the whole person, and someone who would work from the inside out and not the outside in, who would just give a prescription to mask symptoms. I was looking for somebody who took a deeper perspective, and Dr. Osborne does that because he does individualized testing for you and finds out exactly what you need, and not just generically what you need. And he also takes a lot of time. That's part of his program too. He takes a lot of time listening to you, and you really feel at the end of the conversation that he's carefully listened to all you've said and always asks if there's anything more you need to tell him. And so you really feel like he's understanding you and not just a generic you, so to speak. I got really tired of going to doctors over the course of about 10 years and describing my symptoms very carefully and having them give me a drug to mask the symptoms, be it for my reflux, my high blood pressure, or any other number of things that I had. I had more than one doctor tell me, I have no idea what's wrong with you, there's nothing I can do for you, or your insurance won't pay for you to see a specialist. I'm sorry, there's really nothing we can do for you. And I imagine that a lot of those doctors thought that it was in my head. So I was looking for a doctor who took a different approach, and the functional medicine doctor was the answer for me because he looked at me as an individualized person and ran specialized tests just for me that would tell him information about my genetic makeup, what I was deficient in, what kind of bacteria I might have in my gut, other situations that I might be facing. So it wasn't a one-size-fit-all. The functional medicine doctor is the one that got me healthy after 12 years of really active symptoms, but I think my whole life of having problems, a functional medicine doctor is the one who actually listened to me and helped me get my health back.